Greetings and welcome. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbalist SR of the ThaBadbrey and today I am going to be speaking to you and walking you through a tutorial on how ancient astrological aphorisms and rules of Horary Astrology can be applied when and utilized when trying to locate lost objects, missing pets, missing animals, and or missing people. All right. So as I said, this is the ThaBadbrey Herbalist SR, ancient astrologer of the ThaBadbreyHerbal.co.uk. So on Friday, the 9th of June 2017, whilst I was studying ancient astrology, it dawned upon me that I desired to have some beautiful jazz music playing in the background. And I thought to myself, I would like to play some Art Tatum in the background. I wanted to hear the beautiful jazz fingers of Art Tatum playing in the background whilst I studied ancient astrology. So I was sitting downstairs at the time and I thought to myself, let me go to the usual place in the same room I was sitting in at the time where I store the rest of my, well, most of my jazz CDs. Let me go over to that area, that location, to see whether or not I can locate the Art Tatum CD. And when I got there and I searched through the CDs, I found that the Art Tatum CD in question was actually lost. And I thought to myself, it's not there. It's been lost. I don't remember moving the CD. And then it dawned upon me, I do remember. I remember seeing this particular Art Tatum CD with this artwork, Art Tatum T for 2. I remember seeing this CD, this particular CD cover with both CDs inside. I remember seeing it upstairs in the master bedroom on the table. So I thought to myself, it must be up there. So let me go up there and let me see if I can actually locate the CD. Yeah. And when I went up there, it was not on the table where I thought it was. The last place I saw it, it was not there anymore. So I thought to myself, okay, this calls for the ThaBadbrey Ancient Astrologer, ThaBadbrey Herbalist SR Ancient Astrologer, to generate a Horary chart to find out whether or not I could locate the Art Tatum CD. Yeah. So this is the subsequent Horary chart that was generated as a result of me being unable to locate the Art Tatum CD, the beautiful Art Tatum Jazz CD. Yeah. So as you can see here, this is the Horary chart. It says here, name, Horary. Where is the Art Tatum CD? Dot question mark. And this chart was generated on Friday, the 9th of June, 2017. Friday, the day of Venus. All right. Now, the fact that Friday is the day of Venus and Venus rules music, because in ancient astrology, Venus rules merrymaking, creativity, music, art, the arts, anything that is to do with creativity, music, and artwork corresponds with Venus. All right. And the fact that I was looking for a jazz CD to play some beautiful creative music in the background whilst I was studying ancient astrology was very apt for the particular reason why this Horary chart was generated in the first place. Because Venus rules music, and the day was ruled by Venus, because Friday is the day of Venus. And I was looking for an Art Tatum CD so I could listen to some beautiful Venetian music. All right. So, Friday, the 9th of June 2017 at 10:25 a.m. during the planetary hour of Jupiter. All right. So, now, before I get started with delineating and or analyzing this chart and showing you exactly how I managed to actually locate the Art Tatum CD, yeah, I will first go through an explanation as to, well, one of the ways in which you can ascertain whether or not a horary chart is fit to be judged or not. All right. Now, this is an ancient astrological stricture which was used by ancient astrologers to actually get to a viable conclusion as to whether or not a chart, especially horary charts, horary charts are fit to be judged or not. All right. So, the planetary hour, as I said earlier, 1025 was during the planetary hour of Jupiter. All right. And in astrometeorology, as well as in decumbiture charts, decumbiture meaning using horary astrology to ascertain what type of malady or disease a particular person is being afflicted with. Yeah. So, a decumbiture chart, as well as an astrometeorological chart, which deals with delineating the weather. Yes, in both of those types of charts, Jupiter is known as having a temperament of being hot and moist. All right. And since the planetary ruler of the hour in question is Jupiter being hot and moist, then we look to see whether or not the temperament of the planetary hour ruler is in agreement with the temperament of the sign on the cusp of the ascendant. As we can see here, this proportion here is the first house, and this line here is the cusp of the first house, which is the cusp of the ascendant, 24 degrees and 13 minutes. All right. And the sign on the cusp of the ascendant is Leo. Leo has the temperament of being hot and dry. Therefore, the temperament of Leo shares the temperament of hotness with the temperament of Jupiter, because Jupiter is hot and moist and Leo is hot and dry. Therefore, Leo and Jupiter share the temperament of hotness. Therefore, due to the fact that the planetary hour ruler is in agreement with the sign on the cusp of the ascendant in terms of both of their temperaments sharing hotness, this tells me, as an ancient astrologer, that the chart is fit to be judged. So, let's get into this. Let's get into this. Now, whenever you are using a horary chart to try to locate lost objects, missing pets, missing animals, and or missing people, amongst other things that can go missing in your life, I always advise using these four aphorisms. Yeah. The first thing is to establish the ground on which the lost object lies upon. All right. So in this case, I'm looking for the Lost Art Tatum CD. I look to the cusp of the fourth house. And the fourth house, this proportion here is the fourth house, and this line here is the cusp of the fourth house. And the sign on the cusp of the fourth house and its ruler will signify the ground on which the lost object lies upon. All right. The next thing we do is we look at the actual house, which signifies the actual object which has been lost. All right. In this case, I am looking for a CD which plays beautiful jazz music. All right. Beautiful, creative Venetian music. All right. Now, music corresponds with creativity, it corresponds with the inner child, and it corresponds with the arts. And all of those correspondences, which I just mentioned, correspond astrologically with the fifth house. So therefore, the Art Tatum CD, which plays beautiful jazz once you put it in the CD player, the Art Tatum CD of jazz will be ruled by the fifth house, which is over here. This proportion here is the fifth house, this number 5. And the sign on the cusp of the fifth house and its ruler will symbolize the actual CD itself. All right. The next thing we do is look at the part of fortune, the lot of fortune. All right. Which is over here. This circle with a cross in it is known as the part of fortune. It is not a planet. It is, a lot of the time, it's referred to as an Arabic part, okay, or a lot, all right, in ancient astrological terms. And we look at the part of fortune as well as the house that it's actually in, and the ruler of the sign that the part of fortune is found in, as well as the sign itself. And that tells you, that gives you more information as to where the lost object can actually be found. The fourth thing we actually do is we look at the moon, all right? The location of the moon, the sign that the moon is in, and the house that the moon is in, and the ruler of the sign that the moon is in, and where that ruler is located, okay? And we put all of those four things together, and that gives you a picturesque understanding and some type of astrological holographic representation within your right brain as to where the lost object can actually be found. All right. So this is how I went about finding the actual CD, and I found it within, I think it was within about 5 minutes. I actually found the CD itself. So the ground on which the lost object lies upon, the fourth house over here, this is the fourth house. This is Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and Mars is over here in the 11th house. So based upon this and looking at this and saying this sign is actually Scorpio, and the last place I actually saw the actual CD was in the master bedroom, on the upstairs of my house, in the master bedroom on the table. And the fact that Scorpio corresponds with places that have not been accessed for a very long time, places that might have mold or dust or waste products lying within them, actually corresponding very well to the master bedroom, because the master bedroom in my house does not get used, and it gets used for storage. So I thought to myself, it's very likely that it is in the master bedroom, all right? And Scorpio, astrologically speaking, using ancient astrological aphorisms, corresponds with the direction of north, east by north. So I thought to myself, if I go up into the master bedroom and go to northeast by north, I should be able to find myself standing in a location where the lost Art Tatum CD should be. So then I looked to the ruler of the fourth house cusp, or shall I say the sign on the cusp of the fourth house, which is Mars. And Mars is over here, right in the 11th house. The 11th house, astrologically speaking, corresponds with the color of yellow, all right? And Mars being in Cancer gave me more information due to the fact that, astrologically speaking, Cancer corresponds with the direction of north. So therefore, I thought to myself, if I go up into the master bedroom and I walk towards the direction of north, and then turn slightly to northeast by north, and then look for something that is yellow in color, I will be standing right next to where the CD should actually be. So I went up there and I went in the direction of north and turned slightly northeast by north, and right at my feet was an orange bag that is used for recycling lots of papers, all right, as well as a few cardboard boxes that resembled the color of a pale yellow, all right. So I thought to myself, I'm right in the right place. The next thing that I did while I was looking at the chart on my smartphone, my Android, I thought to myself, I must be in the right place. The next thing I do is look at the house which actually rules the actual object which has been lost. As I explained earlier, that is the fifth house and the sign on the cusp of the fifth house. The fifth house is over here, and the cusp of the fifth house is Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, astrologically speaking, corresponds with the direction of southeast by east. All right. So I thought to myself, now that I'm standing in the master bedroom and I'm at my feet, I can see an orange bag as well as cardboard boxes that actually look like a pale yellowish color. I must be in the right place. And now, due to the fact that the fifth house cusp is on Sagittarius, and Sagittarius corresponds with the direction of southeast by east, I thought, let me turn around and face southeast by east and see if I can actually locate where this lost object is, the lost CD. So I turned and faced that direction, and lo and behold, I found nothing. So I thought to myself, let me look to the ruler of Sagittarius, and the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, and Jupiter's right over here. And I thought, okay, so Jupiter is in the third house, and the third house corresponds with the color orange, all right? Or like a wooden-ish, orangish, brownish color, like a faded yellowish, orangish color. So I thought, okay, and Jupiter's over here, and Jupiter actually rules the CD itself, and which makes sense because Jupiter rules anything to do with gifts or somebody buying you a present. And in 2009, I actually bought the Art Tatum CD as a present, as a gift for myself. And therefore, Jupiter corresponds with the Art Tatum CD itself. And the fact that Jupiter in this chart is retrograde means that I must have put it back somewhere, all right, where it may have been stored earlier, or where it used to be stored before I moved the location of it being stored. So I thought to myself, it must be a place where other CDs must be stored. And I thought, okay, there is a shelf in this room where other CDs are stored. Yeah. Also, the fact that Jupiter, which actually signifies the Art Tatum CD, was in Libra, and Libra, astrologically speaking, corresponds with the direction of west. I thought, okay, so now that I'm standing in this location, let me look directly west. Let me look directly west. And I looked directly west and I saw a shelf. Now, Libra corresponds with upper parts of a house. And I was in the master bedroom, which is on the second floor of my house. And Libra also corresponds with shelves. And Libra corresponds with west. And when I looked to the west of me, I saw a shelf. And the shelf was the color of an orangish yellowish. It is made out of wood, and the wood corresponds with a pale kind of yellowish color, which corresponds with it. So I thought to myself, the Art Tatum CD must be in that location. All right. So also the other thing is that I can see here that the sun, which symbolizes me, because I am the person asking the question, and the person asking the question in ancient astrological horary charts always corresponds with the first house cusp and the ruler on the cusp of the first house. And the ruler of the first house is the sun, because the sun rules Leo. Therefore, I'm the person asking the question, so the sun symbolizes me. And I could see that Jupiter over here, you can see this nice, beautiful trine in between the sun, which symbolizes me, and Jupiter, which symbolizes the CD itself. And due to the fact that Jupiter is in Libra, and Libra is the fall of the sun, and the sun, symbolically speaking, looks like a CD. Look at it. It actually looks like a CD. It is a circle with another circle in the middle, and it actually looks like a CD. And it's in the sun being in Gemini at the time, and Gemini are ruling anything to do with the synapses due to the fact that it's ruled by Mercury, and electricity firing in the brain, which corresponds to the stimulation I would get as a result of listening to music. Makes a lot of sense that the sun is in Gemini and that I'm looking for Jupiter, which corresponds to the Art Tatum CD, so that I can stimulate my brain while I'm listening to the CD, while I am learning and studying ancient astrology, which also corresponds to Gemini. So that made complete sense. All right. Now, Jupiter being in Libra and Libra being the fall of the sun, this means that Jupiter is receiving the beam of fallenness from the sun. And based upon my understanding of how reception of planets can be interpreted in reverse, I would say that Jupiter receives the sun into fall. Okay? So therefore, as well as Jupiter receiving the sun into fall and Jupiter being retrograde, that tells me that I may have put the Art Tatum CD back into a place, because fall, as well as Jupiter being retrograde, means me moving backward in terms of how I actually store the CD, or going back to a place where the CDs were stored in the past. All right. And when I looked onto the shelf, I saw that there were loads of CDs on the shelf, and there were loads of different papers and other objects that had fallen off of the shelf, which corresponds with the sun being in fall in Libra and Jupiter receiving the sun into fall. So I thought maybe the CD fell down. So I walked over to I walked over to the actual shelf itself in question, and while I was walking, I looked at this actual Horary chart on my smartphone, my Android, and I looked at where the moon, the planet that the moon was last separating from. Because by looking at the planet that the moon is last separating from, that tells you what happened prior to the actual object being lost. And as I saw, the moon last separated from Jupiter. And using ancient astrological aphorisms, that means that the room in which the lost object was stored in was rearranged, and that the lost object itself was actually moved. All right, which made a lot of sense. So I thought to myself, it must have been on the table. The CD itself must have been on the table, and I must have moved it towards the shelf. All right. Now, the next thing we look at is the moon. Actually, it's the part of fortune. So next thing we look at part of fortune. We get to the moon afterwards. Is the part of fortune, and the part of fortune is over here in Aquarius, which corresponds to the upper room of a house, and also corresponds to the direction of northwest by west. All right, which corresponded to the direction that Libra corresponds to, which is west. So I thought to myself, Libra corresponds to west, and Aquarius, the part of fortune, corresponds to northwest by west, and also corresponds to an upper room of the house and high up on a shelf. And due to the fact that the part of fortune is right over here in the last third of Aquarius, I thought to myself, it must be on a shelf, the shelf that I'm actually walking towards, the CD itself, and it must be on the third shelf down, because the shelf was split into, I think it's split into 4, and I thought it should be on the third shelf down, and that's where the CD should actually be. And the part of fortune over here also looks like the shape of a CD as well, corresponding to the CD itself. Now, the ruler of Aquarius is Saturn, and Saturn brings me over all the way back over to Jupiter, which leads me back to this shelf again. All right. So then we look to the moon. Yeah, and the moon is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, which corresponds to the shelf. So I thought to myself, there is no doubt in my mind that the CD is on the shelf, and it is located on the third shelf down, directly to the west and or northwest by west direction of the room I am standing in, on a shelf that is colored orangish, yellowish, wooden-ish in color. All right. Now, I thought to myself, when would I be likely to get this CD back? And based upon this chart here, the sun corresponds with me, the ThaBadbrey Herbal, and the moon is a natural signifier of anything lost. And the fact that the moon is moving away, is separating from Jupiter, which symbolizes the CD, and is applying to make an opposition with the sun, which symbolizes me, tells me that the moon is translating the light of Jupiter, which corresponds with the CD, and moving it all the way across to the sun, which corresponds with me. Okay, and the moon corresponds with emotion, and it also corresponds with mental acumen. Therefore, my ability to delineate the astrological chart allowed me to ascertain where the CD was and what had happened to it, i.e. me rearranging the room and moving the CD and bringing the CD to me, because the moon symbolizes the CD, and the moon actually applying to make an opposition with the sun symbolizes the CD coming towards me and me coming towards the CD. All right. So due to the fact that the moon was separating from Jupiter by 3 degrees, means probably 3 days ago, and I think that it was actually 3 days ago was when I actually rearranged the CD, rearranged where the CD was actually stored. And I thought to myself, due to the fact that the moon is applying towards the sun, in 1 degree would mean I'm going to find the CD in exactly 1 minute, 1 second, 1 minute, or even 1 hour from the time the chart was actually cast. All right. Now, I carried on walking towards. Bear in mind, all of this took place within a few minutes. I think about 5 minutes or so. I went through all of this in my mind. I'm just breaking this down in detail so those who are learning Horary Astrology can understand exactly what I did in order to actually locate the missing CD itself. All right. So back to what I was saying. Within 1 minute after walking towards this western shelf, I located the Tatum CD, and it was actually on the third shelf down. All right. I actually took a picture of it as well. There you go. And as you can see, there's something orange on the shelf. The shelf is actually orangish in color. And you can see this is a CD holder which is orange. And over here, you can see the color yellowish as well. All right. So there you go. That was quite straightforward. And there's a lot more involved in terms of the essential dignities that are actually employed in order for me to locate the lost CD itself. But I'm keeping it relatively simple for now. All right. This is the ThaBadbrey Herbal SSR of ThaBadbrey Herbal.co.uk. The ThaBadbrey Herbal SSR, ancient astrologer of ThaBadbrey Herbal.co.uk. Stay tuned. I will be back. Dendra.